Welcome back. It is version 2 Rick Corey Sports Special, and a guy I've known for a long time. Matter of fact, high school, college, and professional football and arena ball. It's Josh Blankenship, sunglasses and all, after a nice win over Har-Ber.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's a heck of a game.
It was good, man. First game, playing Arkansas teams is tough. I don't know how many people know, but they get to start with their calendar, their association over there. They start practice significantly sooner than we do in Oklahoma, and so it just always seems like those Arkansas teams are very, very polished compared to sometimes how you feel maybe your group is in game one. And so for us to go out and be as polished as we were, on offense. It took us about a half to settle down and polish up on defense, but our special teams was probably an understated piece that I was so proud of our staff. We talked about in our meeting on Saturday, our recap meeting, but we had zero substitution errors on special teams. We had all of our, stuff you practice on Thursday, mock games, everybody does, but calling out, saying a guy on punt team's down and seeing if their backup is ready to step up and be available. And that was flawless on Friday night. Might have been the thing I was, as far as operations go, the weird head coach stuff that you obsess over. It was just, I was really, really pleased with that.
Oh, and that's something that so easily falls through the cracks. And everybody
No
says it's
doubt.
a third of the game, but you can't practice it a third of the time. So these guys have to be on the ball. And so glad you mentioned your staff. But I wanted to start with your defense. 5 turnovers. Yeah, it was a little rocky in the first half. What settled them between half one and half two?
I think just first game stuff. Har-Ber's been we talked to those guys. They've been working on us for 3 or 4 months. They knew this was their first game, and we run an unorthodox defense, and so they had a good plan. And then our guys just settled down. Really didn't make any adjustments. We were still kind of tackling high in the first half, and not executing calls perfectly. And then we settled down and just started to play our stuff better, and started producing turnovers and especially the interceptions, which when you're giving our offense the ball back, that's all you can ask for. So pitched a
Uh,
shutout in the second half too.
Yeah, and I know Clarence Holly, it's new DC, but although he's been there now during
Right.
practice, still that has to implement into games. Is that part of that? What that first half, that communication and just that feel?
I think so. I mean, it's hard to simulate being under the lights with a bunch of people in the stands, and then at BA you got all the other stuff like a DJ in the student section, and it's wild until you get out there and learn how to be able to focus and do your job, in all the production and everything else that's going on. It really wasn't a poor job by anybody. It was just a settling down, I think, in the first half by a few guys.
Did you see it in their eyes at the half? Because a lot of times when a team is playing like that, it's there. They can feel it, and you can see they
Yeah.
can feel it. Did you see that?
Yeah, and I think that might have been part of the issue going into it was I think a few of our guys maybe had underestimated their opponent a little bit based on what they had seen on film. And then they realized they're going to have to go play really well regardless of who your opponent is. And so it was a great teaching moment. But certainly at half, there was, I'm wanting to talk to them, and they're already trying to walk back out on the field ready to go. Yeah, there weren't any heads down. There was nothing discouraging. There was no vibe. It was just they were ready to go make it right.
All right, so let's get over to your offense. 567 yards, almost 7 yards a carry. And I know you talked about your offensive line. You mentioned it to me during a radio interview. They must have been even better than you thought.
Well, I mean, they've got a high ceiling, and that's the first time that group has been all together in the spots that they're at. And any old line guy will tell you, that chemistry of that group is critical. And but physically, we were what I hoped we would be. And I think that is probably going to become a huge part of our identity, where it might feel like body shots for the first 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden those body shots wear on a defense in the box, and then those runs that were popping for 3, 4, 5 are now popping for 30, 40, 50. So I was pleased with that, and it played out for the most part how we hoped it would.
Well, it doesn't hurt when you got an Octavian Roberson helping you out. I mean, and
No,
they
no,
block a
not at
little bit
all.
for that dude. He gets 192. That's got to be a pretty good relationship.
He's special, and he would be the best player, regardless of where we put him. I mean, if he was the quarterback, he'd be exceptional. If he was a receiver, I mean, he was almost one of our leading receivers. Had 2 touchdown receptions. He plays corner at times, and he's a really good DB. He's just a special athlete.
His development, because we talked about him a little bit again last year on the radio. How have you seen him take steps now as he gets older?
A lot of maturity. He was such a puppy last year as a freshman. Had the skill set, but it's almost maniacal. It's just, hand him the ball and who knows where he's going to go, but it'll be 100 miles an hour. And he really had a great offseason, not only physically, but he really matured a lot. And it's just awesome to watch. I think that's one of my favorite things about high school football, and it's very fresh to me still, only being back in it 4 years removed. But you see so much more change in kids year to year, obviously physically, but the maturity and the growth, the mental side, the emotional side, it's really, really fun to watch kids grow.
Yeah, I can imagine so. And then your quarterback, he had a heck of a game. He also grew. I'm going to try to say his last name because I'll butcher it, so I'll let you do it. But it's Jeremiah.
Yep, Satimba. It looks harder than it sounds, but he had we thought he was pretty special, and we were blessed to have Cooper Bates last year, that could weather the storm and not have to force the sophomore to go in there with a very questionable offensive line at times last year, or the majority of the year once we started hitting injuries and such. But Jeremiah was everything we thought he would be in spring practice. And then we actually had a unique thing where we played a spring game, a full 4-quarter game with special teams and everything, over in Mustang. And Jeremiah he went like 16 for 18. And I think both the incompletions were drops, and I was exceptionally impressed, but it was still had the scrimmage feel to it. And I was optimistic, but still curious to see how he would function in a game that really mattered. And man, he rose to the challenge and had a big, big night. And he's such a leader. He's the first quarterback I've had in a while that can bail me out of bad calls. I mean, he can, because you're going to have them, and the defense gets to play too. And there were 2 third downs that after I called what I called and we're about to snap the ball, I did not like what I had on. And he just made it right and got the first down. And I think we were like 9 of 12 on third down conversions, and most of them weren't short, not ideal. We were a little behind the chains due to some penalties, and so a lot of those were third and longs. But unbelievably proud of him and pleased with his development.
Now, as a guy who is a quarterback yourself, and you've told me before, it's probably that you're harder on quarterbacks. But here's a guy who's seeing it, making it happen. This is an interesting question. When it's done, you go to him and do you point out these kinds of things and say, now, look, right here, here's what I was seeing, and here's what happened. Here's what you did to help me out. Now, how do we work that maybe to even change that call? Do you get into that kind of stuff?
We have a lot of those conversations because I'm a big believer in the quarterback's almost got to be a mind reader of the play caller. I want that guy to know why we're calling the things that we are, when we're calling the things that we are. So we have a lot of those conversations. And then I'm a big believer in a football team owning their QB, loving their QB. I think you really got to prop those guys up as your leader if they have all the characteristics to be that. And so he is certainly that. And so we do a lot of that, and we'll have some of those conversations very publicly in front of the team, because I want the team to see that. And, man, what that does for your O-line, they puff out their chest a little bit more. They kept him clean all game, so they got a helmet sticker for that. But he's special and he's a leader. We go in the locker room and we do our celebration song and dance, and I kind of say a quick few words to kind of pull him back in, and then Jeremiah steps up and addresses the team. And I mean, this is a junior coming off his first start, and he's taken the team and says, "I'm gonna lead this group." It's fun.
That is pretty cool. And having expectations going in, and you already talked about your special teams, and I was glad you mentioned that. But now that you've taken some time, you've looked at it, you've seen some film. Anybody that performed or any groups performed even better than you thought? And as a whole, are you more pleased, about as pleased as you thought you would be? What would you assess?
Well, there's a lot in that question, Rick. Obviously we talked about the O-line group coming out and establishing physicality. I thought our DBs and linebackers flying around to produce turnovers was really big. I'd say the group that really stands out to me the most was our all of our essentially our twos that are gonna play. They're usually those guys that play on JV nights, but then they also play on Friday nights in a rotational matter and or a rotational fashion. But I could name so many guys that were ready in critical moments to jump in and do their job. Jaden Garcia jumped in on I think it might have been our first third and long, and catches a slant route to convert the third down. I mean, and I could name a bunch of guys like that, like I mentioned earlier with the special team substitutions and guys just jumping in and doing their job at a high level and being ready to be called. Because you know how chaotic a sideline can get. Everybody's screaming for one guy, trying to find him, and we didn't have any of that. And guys were ready to jump in and contribute. So I think overall that would probably be the group that stands out is our twos ready to get in and contribute.
It's saying what you said as a head coach, it's got to make you even extra proud because it's your entire program. You got to do it all
Yeah.
from the top down, and you're managing that mess, which is sometimes like trying to put your chain uphill with your nose. So I know how difficult that can be.
But it takes a staff that's all working together on those things, and that I think again, props to the staff for really making that a high priority. And that game one on those kind of things, that game one, those things can sneak up on you. And so I'm super proud of those guys.
I know you're not finished with Arkansas teams. You've got a
Right.
team I just saw in those folks over in Bentonville, and they're pretty salty. What are you seeing on film?
Well, we've got Fayetteville.
Oh,
So
okay.
Bentonville's who we played the past couple years, and they are a tough, tough, talented team. And Fayetteville's who beat Bentonville in the state championship. So I think Fayetteville's won something like, I don't know, they won 14 in a row last year, so something probably plus to that. But they beat Cabot, thumped them over at Cabot, which I think is something like 3 hours away, and they went over there and thumped them 40 to the three, or it was a pretty big win. Super, super talented. They always are, but they've had a bunch of transfers and move-ins, and they had two of Bentonville's best players, I think, came over after the state championship. A kid from IMG Academy. You got Coach Odom's son as the quarterback, Coach Odom out at UNLV. Very, very talented on both sides of the ball. So it's a great opportunity for us to. Har-Ber was way, way better than we even saw on film, and very impressed with what they're doing in their program. But we're going to level up and play a team now that is a big jump better. But it's something that we're excited about because these are the type of games that when we're playing the way we're supposed to play, these are the games you want to play.
Yeah. Now I notice you as a very organized guy, and I see behind you all these stickies on your cabinet back there. So I want you to tell me what any one of those stickies is, or those appointments, or those things you have to do. What are they?
Well, I probably shouldn't say this, but a lot of those are like logins and passwords. Um, and then a bunch of reminders. One is a helmet thing I need to get done. We're trying to put on a youth banquet at the end of the youth season this year. Some personal little notes to remind myself on a philosophical, emotional, spiritual level. So it's the full gamut.
Oh, you know what? I love it because that just shows, sometimes people think coaches just, they kind of walk differently. Well, you've got a life like everybody else and an entire tribe at home. So I know that kind of thing. You've got to be organized, don't you?
Yeah, if I'm not, I probably would be divorced. And thank goodness I have her because we have the calendars on the refrigerator, calendar in my phone. This time of year, it's Monday nights. I'm watching Gracie play volleyball, and if not, I'm at our JV games. Tuesday night, I'm watching our eighth grade and ninth grade team, and then Barrett, my oldest, is playing ninth grade football. So I got to watch that last night. Thursday night, we have another volleyball this week. Friday, we have our games. And then Saturday, I get to watch Deacon, my second oldest boy, play football, and then my youngest daughter cheer. So it's a full plate, man, but it is a blast this time of year.
By the way, Lindsay is his wife, and she does manage the entire thing for him.
He's a
Josh,
CEO for sure.
congratulations on week number one win, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Rick.